Today is March 26, 2019. I am Raven and Landon, Sarazine. We are interviewing Gwen and Henry Barber. We are in Academic Commons North in Brunswick, Georgia, at College of Coastal Georgia, and we are conducting an interview as part of a project to record the history of the College of Coastal Georgia. What is your full name?
Gwen Barber.
Henry E. Barber.
Okay, where were you guys born?
I was born in New York City, New York.
I was born in St. Cloud, Florida.
Any experiences that helped, or what was growing, how was growing up in that community?
Well, it was all Yankee. I moved to Florida when I was 13, so I really consider Florida my home. And I remember most growing up it was a small town outside of Orlando called College Park. That's where I went to middle school, or junior high it was back then, and high school. And it was fun, wasn't it? We grew up together in school, or in high school. Started dating in our junior year. And it was a nice place to be. It really was, small town.
I grew up in Central Florida, lived in various smaller communities, but ended up in Orlando, and went to junior high and high school, as Gwen says, in Orlando. We graduated from high school in 1962.
Ouch.
Oh, God.
Yes, there were dinosaurs roaming there.
Did you guys go to college there?
We went to, go ahead.
We went to Florida State together.
Oh, cool.
And we finished Florida State in 3 years, and we graduated on a Friday, and we got married, on a Thursday, and we got married the following Saturday.
2 days later.
2 days later. And after that, went off to Athens, Georgia, where I entered graduate school. And Gwen started teaching middle school at the age of 20.
That's cool.
And then after teaching 3 years, I went and got my master's at Georgia, and we moved to Virginia.
Yeah.
And when I taught in high school there and was chairman of the math department. And then after 3 years, we decided it was time to have a family, and we did that. And we have a daughter who's now 48, and a son who's 46 right now. And then we came to Brunswick, and we've been here 42 years or 3.
We came to Brunswick in 1976 and started working here. And unusual to have a married couple in the same college, but we were in different departments. I was in the history, social sciences, and she in the developmental studies, learning support, mathematics.
That's cool.
And I didn't apply for the job. Dr. Teal, who was president of the college then, interviewed and hired Jane, and then he later, that same day I guess, he said, "Do you know there's a math position open?" I said, "No." He said, "Are you interested?" So I started working here that way. I didn't even know there was a job.
You just offered?
Yeah,
It's kind of cool.
yeah, it was.
Yeah. How long did you guys work here?
I retired after 25 years here, which was in 2000, and then I retired and took care of a couple of grandchildren, and I started teaching at night part-time for Armstrong, and I taught in their math education program for teachers, because there was a program here on campus at that time through Armstrong and Georgia Southern.
What is Armstrong?
In Savannah, Armstrong.
Oh, the university? Okay.
It's now part of Georgia Southern, but it was a freestanding college, then university in Savannah. Armstrong State.
That's kind of cool.
I retired in 2007 after 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you had 32 or 31. Don't look at me.
Sick leave factored in and gave me an extra year, I think.
Yeah.
How did your role change over the years?
Yeah, all right. I started out teaching in, as Jean said, just the developmental studies program. Developmental studies, which I firmly believe in, although the university system doesn't anymore, I don't think, was a program for mostly people who either did not take the classes in high school to be prepared to go to college, or they had had them so long ago that they simply were not ready to go into college calculus or even pre-calculus. And I found it extremely rewarding because so many of the people were older, and I've always thought if I could take every PhD on this campus and give them the same test that these kids had to take, or all of them, all of our incoming students, that probably every one of them over 30 would start in learning support math. Because no matter how smart you are and how well you did in high school or even freshman in college taking classes, if you have 5 or 10 years of no math after high school, then you just can't take calculus instantly and do well. So there was a lot of debate about that, and there still would be if there were allowed to be, I guess, because they've done away with most of that, although some schools still have it. They always have had it, something to help people. And that's one of the things I like today, because I still, well, like there's one young lady, it's a nurse at the hospital, and she does a lot of counseling and other things. And when I see her, she always talks to me about when she was here and how if she hadn't had the basic classes, she was older, she couldn't have started off. And it was good. I enjoyed it very, very much. And then I also started teaching pre-calculus in the math department. And I enjoyed that too. That was a different challenge. And it was fun. Yeah.
How for you?
I came in as an assistant professor of history and went through the ranks of that, teaching the Survey American History classes, because that's what the two-year colleges did, just the surveys of American history and world civ. In 1986, the then Brunswick College entered into a consortium agreement with Georgia Southern University in Statesboro and Armstrong State. His name has changed as well. I just call it Armstrong State in Savannah. They entered into a consortium by which the two senior institutions would offer selected baccalaureate degrees here on this campus. And rather than our students having to drive to Savannah or Statesboro, their faculty would drive to Brunswick and teach classes in a night school program. And I was asked by Dr. Teal and Dr. Morgan Stapleton, the then Vice President for Academic Affairs here, to become the coordinator and ultimately the director of what they called the Brunswick Center. And I taught a few more years part-time in doing the Brunswick Center part-time. And then about, 1990, 91, I was moved full-time into the Brunswick Center role as the director of the Brunswick Center. And so until I retired in 2007, that was 21 years. I was director of the Brunswick Center. And so long before Brunswick College or the Coastal Georgia Community College, as we were then known, became four-year to become the College of Coastal Georgia, there were baccalaureate and master's degrees offered on this campus through the two senior institutions. And over those years, I personally helped over 1,300 students earn baccalaureate degrees from Georgia Southern and Armstrong, and I don't know how many master's degrees over those years. But,
And most of the programs weren't they in teacher education?
Yes, I can give you, we had a bachelor's degree in history, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a bachelor's degree in early childhood education, a bachelor's degree in middle school education, a bachelor's degree in general studies, a bachelor's degree in nursing, all from Armstrong, and a bachelor of business administration from Georgia Southern.
So lots and lots of particularly the elementary school teachers here
Still today.
started off at Brunswick Junior College and then worked up their way up. Never had to leave Brunswick.
Yeah, that's cool.
And same thing with the nursing students.
The nursing program was a bridge program that allowed the associate degree nurse from Brunswick College to transition into a bachelor's degree program. So we run into a lot of teachers and a lot of nurses that we were involved with in those days.
I bet.
And as Gwen said, she taught them the math education for the early childhood and middle grades education program for Armstrong after she retired from.
And I also taught sometimes for continuing ed.
Yes.
There were people from Georgia Power and others that needed some background stuff for their certifications and all.
We had a very strong continuing education department here as a 2-year college.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the campus like during your time here? What did it look like?
It was fun. Everybody knew everybody. The first year we were here, there was still baseball, softball. I never know the difference.
Baseball.
Then it became
Intercollegiate baseball.
and then it became a big basketball campus. And Gerald Cox was coach. This is almost, well, it's hilarious. I was the cheerleader coach, which was really a joke. What that really meant was I saw to it that they got to practices and all. Some of these girls had competed in national stuff in high school. They knew what they were doing. They just needed the discipline, but it was fun. And basketball was fun. The faculty showed up. They brought their families. Way back before either one of you ever were in Brunswick, there was a Ramada Inn where Drs. Morales and them are now. And those two buildings that belonged to Dr. Morales were a hotel, Ramada. And after the basketball games, lots and lots of faculty and children, students, all went over there, and they had dances and stuff like that. It was just a totally different atmosphere. It was really a fun atmosphere. I mean, they didn't have University of Georgia football, but basketball was just that big a deal, and it was full.
That's interesting. So big crowds all the time, huh?
It really was.
Oh, wow.
And now I don't think a handful go. I don't know how it is. It was not too long ago. I know small attendance still. But back then, everybody went, faculty, students. We brought our children. They grew up on this campus, literally. They were 3 and 4, or 4 and 5 when we moved here.
When did the cheerleading stop? When did the cheerleading stop?
Oh, gosh.
You passed that on to somebody else.
Yeah, I did pass it on to somebody else, but I don't remember who.
When we came, basketball had been discontinued, and they still had the baseball for a year. And then the president, Dr. Teal, decided that neither program was strong enough to continue, so we didn't have any kind of intercollegiate sports for a while. And I don't remember the date, I'm sure the records will show it, but they reinstituted the basketball, women's basketball and men's basketball, and that was when they established the Mariner as the mascot, and the green and yellow were the school colors for that time. All of that was changed, of course, when this became a 4-year institution.
What was the mascot before the Mariner? Was there one?
There was, but I don't recall what it was.
But Randy Gann, I don't know if he's going to be interviewed or not. He and John Hamilton were original faculty members, and they're still both local. And Randy had a beard, and he would wear a costume that looked like a mariner with the big hat and the slicker, the rain gear and all. And
Oh, that's fantastic.
and it was fun. I mean, it just was fun.
So your question again was,
what was campus like during your
what
time
was
here?
it like? Okay. In the vein of activities and so forth, we had a rather strong intramural program among the students, and the faculty and staff, particularly the men, would participate in that program. And so I enjoyed playing intramural volleyball with the faculty staff team. There was a pool here at the time. You probably don't know that there was an indoor swimming pool.
There
as
is
part of the
still
gym.
a pool
Not
filled
in the
in.
gym.
Did they tear it up?
It's gone.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gone. The pool is gone. It was called the natatorium. I'd never heard that word before. But swimming was a required physical education course at that time. You could not graduate with an associate's degree through much of our time here without passing either a swimming test or passing a swimming course. So a lot of people don't know that there was a swimming pool, indoor swimming pool, at that time.
And faculty could use it at night. We brought our children up here, and I guess Debbie finally learned to swim there.
Anyway, there was a real closeness among the faculty. It was a small faculty. I mean, we would have 1,100 students, and we thought 1,100 was a good enrollment, or 1,200 was a great enrollment. And that, of course, meant that there was a smaller faculty, and that offered the opportunity for a lot more inter-faculty and inter-staff relationships and social activities.
Was there like any dorms or anything?
No,
No.
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 The only buildings that were here when we came were, am I bumping you?
Either I have to move away or you
I'm
have to
bumping
be
you.
still.
Okay. The library was here, the administration building was here, and these are going to be names that you're going to have to identify on an old map because they're not known as that anymore. The Andrews Student Center, and what's now you call Academic Commons South, that was called the Allied Health Building. And the building here, I forget the name of it now, but it was called the Science Building, and it just opened in the summer of 1976. So we moved into a brand new building.
That leaked.
That leaked, yeah, it had all kinds of problems. But we had offices on the same hallway at that time. The gym was here. We called it a vocational technical building. It's the one that I think is student activities building or something like that now. That was here. And then the plant operations building way over on the back side. But during our time here, the Allied Health Building, which is now this building, this was built, and the Continuing Education Center, as we called it, that theater conference center on the south end of the campus, that was built, added here while we were employed here.
You want some of these?
Oh, sure. What do you remember, or who do you remember specifically on campus, faculty-wise, that was an interesting personality or somebody who just stuck out to you?
Well, my colleague Alan Gann, known as Randy Gann, was the other teacher, professor in history at the time, and he was one of the original faculty members here. And as we were suggesting earlier, he should be contacted. He's in his 80s now, but he was a master storyteller, and he has some great stories of the early years of this institution. He's in his mid-80s now, but I assume he's still
Telling stories?
right.
What was his name?
Alan R. Gann or Randy Gann.
We can give you contact information before we leave.
I worked, well, we both worked under Morgan Stapleton, who passed away just this past year. he was the academic dean and then changed the nomenclature and he became academic vice president. But Dr. Morgan Stapleton was a very distinguished man, a great leader, well loved by his faculty. He looked out for his faculty's interests, and he was certainly one of the outstanding people during our tenure here at this institution.
How did y'all feel about the new construction on campus, the new science
I'm
building?
sorry. You need to talk louder.
Oh, the new science building on campus, the new dorms. How do y'all feel about the new construction and the new buildings that we have?
I'm very pleased that it's now a four-year school, and being a four-year school, it obviously has to have dormitories, and it needs more dormitories probably already. I think it's great. I do think there's a very strong need for the vocational aspect, just like that's what it used to have both in the community college, but they now have Coastal Pines Technical College, and I think that's very important. But I think it's wonderful that there's a four-year school here that people can come to and get their, and the people who live here, it's nice to have a place that doesn't cost them $25,000 a year. I mean, I know you're from Wyoming. I don't know where you're from.
Warner Robins, Georgia.
Yeah, but it just makes a huge difference. Our granddaughter went to Georgia and got a master's and a bachelorette, and we were kind of her parents. And I know what it's like to do it both ways, and it's nice. So
This was a commuter campus all through the years, of course. But we talked about the desire to have dormitories on campus to attract more students, because South Georgia College, for example, an older community college or two-year college in the system, had dormitories, but we never had probably the numbers to justify building dormitories. But certainly we would applaud the building of additional buildings. The style of architecture changed. You can tell from the old buildings there was a certain style of architecture that they were trying to keep throughout all the buildings, and they've departed from that with the new buildings. But it's great.
now, one of the questions here that I guess relates closely to that is things like the bell tower. That was built while we were here, and it was named after, was it Carly Zell?
His wife.
After his wife, and he built it to honor her, and he's since passed. Well, they both now have, long time ago, but students used to gather there. That was.
Do you know where the bell tower was?
I know the bell is located in the center of campus. Is that where it was?
Right.
It was right in the middle.
Right.
You know the bell? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It never really worked well, though. And it was never very attractive. It became a symbol for the college. It was kind of
I liked it.
If you expected a bell tower in a traditional collegiate sense, it was kind of stark. But it was a symbol for the college, and when it did work, you could hear it chime throughout the neighborhoods around the campus.
Well, and you look like you're further down.
You
It
may
says-
not have the same question.
Well, that's true. One of the questions we had was to think about the new technology introduced on campus. And we were here for the introduction of technology, period. All technology was new, and it was interesting. Nobody knew how to use it. Faculty members would get mad and say, those computers just don't da-da-da-da. And the tech people would say, the computer's only as smart as what you put in it. But it was very interesting. And then there came a time when nobody was supposed to print anything. The offices didn't print stuff. They sent it to all the faculty, and we tried to convince them that just costs more paper. because people would print it, they'd use it, then they'd throw it away, then they'd have to reprint it when they needed it. And but back when we first came, we had Selectric typewriters, but we also, every faculty member had a staff person to go to who would do the typing. And there were no such things as test banks and books and all that, like you all probably are familiar with. It was all, you wrote it out and the secretary typed it. And especially in the math department, that was important because of all the symbols. Nobody else knew how to type it, and they were perfect. Where I did most of my typing myself, when I got to all the symbols, I turned that stuff over to a secretary who would have it perfect. And but email came in with us.
All of
At
technology.
first we had
computer-based technology
Apple computers because Apple came out first.
for education.
And that was what everybody used. And then they went over to the HP when they started bringing in, when they caught up. Apple was first, and then the HP took over, and then Dell was in there too. And I don't know what the faculty uses now, but I know my grandchildren say there's nothing like a Mac. But I don't know what. It was really funny.
Okay. Next question.
You were around for, I'm assuming, for the various name changes and the transition from 2 to 4 year. How was the reaction of the community, and how was the reception of that?
Well, the name changes were not that big a deal. The college first started out as Brunswick College, and then it was named Brunswick Junior College for a few years. Then the Board of Regents changed it to Brunswick College again. And then about 1992, we got a new president here. Dr. Teal retired. And the new president, Dr. Dorothy Lord, came out of the Florida system of community colleges, which were heavily vocational as well as academic focused. And Brunswick College had a vocational technical division here, which was the equivalent of the Coastal Pines or other technical colleges now. There were four junior colleges in the university system of Georgia at the time that had this vocational technical division. We were one of them. And Dr. Lord felt very strongly about the vocational technical programs, and she thought if we're going to have vocational technical as well as the transfer programs, we ought to describe ourselves accordingly. And in Florida, those were all referred to as community colleges. So Dr. Dorothy Lord, I think, was the motivation behind the Board of Regents finally changing the name of this institution to the Coastal Georgia Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And it was under that name until 2008 when the Board of Regents decided to add this institution to the other 2-year colleges, turning them into 4-year institutions, and the name was changed to the current name. There had been a long desire in Brunswick to have a 4-year institution here, and so when the decision was made to make this into a 4-year college, the community applauded it very much so. A very, very strong community support for that.
As soon as the technical school caught up, then it was a wonderful decision for Brunswick. For a couple of years, it was really hard on students. Students who were midway in a program, all of a sudden the program didn't exist.
The vocational technical program.
But after about 2 years, I guess, they were able to go back and finish everything. So it's worked really well in Brunswick.
How did your department, I guess history for you, how did it develop over the time and change?
Well, it was never a department of history. It was always first a division of social sciences. Mm-hmm. Initially, the faculty was organized into divisions. There was a division of math and science, division of social sciences, humanities and arts division, a business division, and the vocational technical division. and it was never large enough to have any single department. All of the social sciences were under that one division chairman. There was not a department chair, there was a division chair. And I think it's still a division, isn't it? A department now, but a department of social sciences. There's not a department of history, a department of sociology, et cetera, yet. It's just not large enough to justify that. But it was divisional organization, more so than a departmental type organization through our tenure anyway.
Yeah, that's how all the departments were, or divisions were.
Learning support was its own division.
Yeah, and we had math, English writing mostly, and they actually had reading too for some students don't read at what should be college level.
Were there any clubs or organizations on campus for the students?
Yeah, well, and I don't remember the year, I'd have to look it up for me. I came on helping somebody with what was, now remember we were a junior college, so it was an honor society for junior colleges, Phi Theta Kappa.
A international
Yeah.
honor society for two-year college students.
And about the same time that Dr. Lloyd came, it just started really growing, and we had a wonderful group of students, large group that were very active. We received budgeting from the
Student services.
Dave Leanhouse and Student Services, and that provided for quite a bit, and the students raised a lot of money too, and they traveled to like it would be a statewide meeting in Atlanta, or it could be
Macon.
Athens.
Athens.
Oh yeah, Macon, that was always fun. And then there were national meetings. I remember clearly one in San Francisco that we went to, and one in Chicago. And
St. Louis, Anaheim.
yeah, St. Louis was fun too.
Washington.
And we took any student who who was a member, who was willing to work. They had to earn some money, but they also had to enter various levels of competition. And more than once, we won the national competitions.
As a chapter.
As a chapter, not an individual, but as a chapter. And because it was bringing such good publicity to the college as well, Dr. Lord was very supportive, which always helps when the college president is supportive as far as providing money. And she even helped, if the students would go to her, she would sit down with them and help them with some of these essays and things, just as my husband started helping with some of the essays. And then when the person I was working with quit, he came on full-time as, not full-time, it was all extra outside of teaching. But he came on as assistant, which made it easier for us to travel rather than having unmarried adults who had to then have 2 rooms and all these other things. It helped with expenses.
Yes, there were college organizations, but not as common as there are now. But Phi Theta Kappa was, we like to say, the dominant, preeminent organization because it brought attention to the college in various ways. It was an honor society, but it also included a great deal of service activities. We served the community, we served the college as well.
And we had to document all of that at the state and national level for competitions, and so that worked out.
One of the activities of Phi Theta Kappa was for each chapter to put together a yearbook of their year's activities. And in the library, there's a collection of about 6 or 7 Phi Theta Kappa yearbooks. So if anyone were ever interested in not only seeing what Phi Theta Kappa chapter did on this campus,
But there are a lot of pictures.
a lot of pictures, but just a lot of pictures of the campus, a lot of documentation of the kinds of activities that were going on in the 90s, especially when we were most active. So that would be a good source for anyone to go to.
One of the major activities on campus was we sponsored the Professor of the Year contest.
Oh, yeah.
And students nominated, they had to write an essay to nominate a teacher or professor. And then there was a mathematical system to rate the competition. And we had a big luncheon then for all the faculty and would announce the faculty of the year, the professor of the year. And it was good.
We gave them a plaque.
Yeah.
Just honored them.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
And it meant a lot to faculty.
Yeah, I bet,
It really
sure.
did. And they had to write a real essay. They couldn't just say, I nominate so-and-so because I made A's. You know, that didn't work. You had to give a supporting reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What about athletics on the campus and the sports teams we had at the time?
Okay,
So,
well,
I can't.
Oh,
I
sorry.
think we already addressed that one.
Yeah.
Sports and
actually.
athletics.
Well, yeah, like
Okay.
What'd
it
you
kind of
say?
just got added in.
Sports teams.
What have you been doing since you left CCGA?
Well, what have we been doing?
We've traveled.
Yeah, we've been to,
We've watched grandchildren grow up.
we've been to Europe and places like that. Been on a number of cruises.
I
What?
am active in a volunteer admissions program. I go to Honduras every year for a week on a mission, short-term mission. Been doing that since 2004, before I retired, actually.
Yeah, we're involved in different things in our church and with our family. With one child in Montana, we visit up there twice a year most of the time.
Have you been in the winter?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But before they lived in Montana, they lived in Alaska. And yes, we went twice a year there too. Once in the summer and once at Christmas or Thanksgiving. And yes, we actually have a closet that has our winter clothes. Probably the only people who live here.
In fact, we were in Montana for Thanksgiving this past year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we'll be up there this summer sometime. I don't know.
It's all nice and warm.
No, you don't think?
My dad's from Minnesota. It's cold up there.
Oh, no, that's horrible. That's where Danny and
Okay.
Laura,
Okay.
oh.
What steps would you like to see in the college in the future? Like to take in the future?
I'd like to see it continue to grow, and people who retired since us say that as the college has grown, the faculty obviously are not as close as we were once upon a time. And I regret that for the students' sake, really. I think it's better for the students to have a friendly atmosphere with everybody. I mean, I don't know about the current administrators. I don't know them because I left a long time ago. 19 years ago I retired. And it was basically a really nice place to be. And most of the administrators, there are some, you might not have agreed with, but
I think it's important that the institution retain its close faculty-student relationship.
Yeah.
I would hope that we never see this institution in a situation where you've got the 250, 350 student classes. We went through those even in our day in college at Florida State,
awful.
and they served their purpose. But we always prided ourselves here in our two-year college setting in having a close faculty-student relationship, and you could get that one-on-one help and assistance. You were not just a number. And we used to talk about that 40 years ago, and it's still a situation. Of course, it gets even worse with the larger institutions. But hopefully, I would not want this one to grow so much that it loses that student focus. I think research institutions are important, but I hope that the faculty never places the first criteria, the first priority on research and publication. the first criteria for any faculty evaluation should be student relationships
And advisement.
and advisement.
College of Coastal Georgia took the lead, and the person who was here that actually led it was Dr. Charlie Nutt. But they pushed advisement more than most anything with students. And we all know people who've been messed up with the wrong advice. So it's important that students have that opportunity to really sit down. I worried about that after Charlie left and a couple others died off. There was an academic advisement center. I don't know if that still exists or not. But it was a wonderful place because students could go in with the least question and find somebody to sit with them and guide them. Right?
Yes.
Do you have any other memories of CCGA, the students' community, or in general that you would like to share?
Well, we could talk about the toga party. That was fun. See, they liked that. The faculty did do different things.
The faculty participated in student dances and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she was referring to a Halloween party when our first year here.
Was it the first year?
It was the first year here, and I wore a toga that I had carried with me since high school days. And,
You really did.
Yeah. And yes, but there was a lot of faculty involvement with student activities, which may or may not be the case now. I don't know. But talking about the Phi Theta Kappa, one of our money-raising projects was hot dog sales. This was before we had the kind of food service you have here now, and we would periodically have hot dog sales out on the quadrangle there, and that was fun, just that sort of thing.
Contrary to some reports, when was Valerie Hepburn here?
She started the 4-year institute.
There was food service on this campus when we came in 1976, and it was in what's that now?
The Andrews Student Center.
Right.
Well, Andrews Center now. That was the Student Center building, where the registrar is now, and financial aid.
And it started at faculty. Some of the faculty that were here at 8 o'clock, no, they had breakfast, big table full of people, and who did all of this kind of thing. 1 minute. Anyway, and so there was food over there. A few years ago, it was announced that was the beginning of food service. Well, there was food service for years, and people would go by and also get food. And when you had night students who worked all day and they barely get here on time, they would get food and bring it to class, and nobody ever objected, I don't think.
I will be assertive here in saying that I felt some resentment when the 4-year institution was created here because of the person who was brought in as the first president of the 4-year college, because her perspective was that nothing had ever happened here until she came, until this became a 4-year institution. And this place started in 1961. We turned out a lot of good students. We sent a lot of good students off to the university system, 4-year schools and universities. I personally, as I was sharing with you earlier, was involved with the Brunswick Center program, and we saw baccalaureate degrees being offered here through those 4-year institutions. And it was very disheartening to read comments in the newspaper that we're initiating for the first time ever. No. You're taking history classes also. You know there's a certain cyclical thing about historical events. That's true of institutions also. They go in cycles. There's virtually nothing new under the sun. If you go back far enough, a new idea today was discussed 25, 30, 40 years ago. And you'll find that if you research the history of this institution. So, yes, I think that there needs to have been, at that time anyway, more acknowledgement of the foundation that was provided for higher education in Brunswick and Glenn County and this area of southeast Georgia through the two-year college. And it was very, quite frankly, offensive to me when the implication was nothing happened until the four-year college came. Well, I was saying the point that we started in 1961, and a lot of years of good two-year college experience here.
Absolutely.
And that credit was not given by the first president of the four-year institution. And I would say that to be recorded because I felt that way very strongly, and I would tell her to her face.
This is going to help change that whenever we do our projects about the history of CCGA. That two-year program, two-year college will be front and center in that. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because she could not have created, Regents could not have created a four-year college here without the foundation of this two-year institution. And acknowledgement needs to be given to that. A lot of good faculty members came through over those years that we were here. I for 31 years, she for 25 years. And we met some of the originals. They retired, new ones came in. A few of them are still hanging around. A few of them are still here.
Carlton Morrison is still alive.
Yeah.
Is he?
Probably not a good source.
He was one of the original ones for a whole nother aspect of.
So have you guys finished up, or are you